All right, let's get started. So again, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining our webinar here today about the Query Builder. As you can see, we call it Query Builder, easiest way to write AL queries. By way of introduction, my name's Tyler Epping. My role or official title here at E1 is Popdock Evangelist. It's a very fancy term for being a pre-sales individual that primarily focuses on Popdock. So my role kind of jumps around everywhere from doing product demos to training to jumping in on occasional support cases to working with the product team. So I get a good opportunity to see a lot of different viewpoints of using the tool Popdock. Which is what Query Builder is a part of. Um, So what we're going to be talking about today is, and kind of give you a quick introduction. So before I do that, when we talk about Query Builder inside of Popdock, one thing I will note is we are going to be focusing on its application within our D365 Business Central connector today. I will point out that we do also have a Query Builder in our Azure Synapse connector, but for the purpose of today, we're going to be primarily focusing on how it applies to Business Central and gives you access to generating new queries of your Business Central data. Before I kind of introduce some of the things that you see on the slide here, maybe I'm taking a step back. I should introduce kind of the problem. For a lot of customers who at one point, I guess, ran their ERP on premise and have moved to a cloud application like Business Central, one of the common things that we hear is it's more difficult to get to the database level and generate new queries. It quickly becomes a little bit more of a technical exercise, maybe a potential developer exercise. And oftentimes you need to have some familiarity with AL code or the AL programming language that Business Central is on. So we introduced Query Builder to really help with that. Now, for users that came from Dynamics GP, obviously, if you're familiar with E1, we were kind of born out of the Dynamics GP space. And one of our products inside of Dynamics GP was called Smart List Builder, which allowed you to build new smart lists, joining them together and modify, existing smart lists inside of GP. Um, so what the Query Builder is really, in a sense, you can think of it as almost like Smart List Builder, but for Business Central, where we're giving you, table level access to build out new queries at the database level. So what does the Query Builder do? As you can see from the slide, it allows you to build optimized AL queries with a no-code setup. One of the big benefits to our Query Builder is that you get direct access to all the tables. That not only includes any of the standard tables within Business Central, but any custom extensions that you might have, as well as ISV products. They're all available for our Query Builder to access and allow you to generate new queries of that data. You can see on the second bullet point there, our Query Builder provides really an intuitive and kind of a user-friendly visual interface. For those of you that are familiar with building custom lists inside of Popdock, one of the custom list types that we have is a join list. And the visual interface for building a join list is really going to be very similar to the experience for your Query Builder list, except the big difference is with a join list inside of Popdock, we're essentially joining together two lists of data that Popdock has access to that might be going across different connectors that you've set up. Whereas in the case with Business or Query Builder, instead of lists, we are allowing you to join together tables from your Business Central environment. There's additional ways to optimize the query. We give you the ability to do things like group together, summarize, and add restrictions to fields. So just providing additional optimizations when you're building out your query. And the last thing that I like pointing out is we're utilizing a read-only like replica database, which is a couple or a fraction of a seconds behind the production database for your Business Central environment. And where this really comes into play is that it's very helpful when it comes to performance. We can handle larger data sets by you making this read-only query. So just continuing on that path of optimization and building out efficient queries what we're accessing in terms of querying the data. Once these queries are available inside of BC, we are accessing a read-only replica database, which really benefits from a performance perspective. So that's a quick high-level introduction to Query Builder. The primary meat of this webinar is I'm going to be showing you it inside of Popdock. So I'm going to transition out of slides and we are going to get into it. So give me 1 second here. So I'm jumping into my Popdock web application here. And to get to the Query Builder, we are going to be locating our Business Central connector. So one thing to point out, when you set up connectors, connecting to Business Central with Popdock, there's 2 different connectors that you actually set up. You set up one that points to your production environment and then one that points to your sandbox. And the reason behind that is the Query Builder is going to be available in your sandbox connector. And that's because we don't have a way of directly publishing to a production environment with Business Central. So essentially what we do is we create our queries in our sandbox connector. We can publish that query to our sandbox environment, and then once it's published, we have the ability to promote it to our production environment from there. So I'm going to go into my sandbox here by clicking on the pencil icon. And then you'll notice under the settings menu, one of the tabs inside of here is the Query Builder. So I have a couple of them that I've built out. I will highlight those in a second, or in a little bit, I should say. We're going to start and we're going to actually just generate a new query using the Query Builder. So to do so, you'll go up here and add lists, and you start really any list building process inside of Popdock by giving your Query Builder list a name. So the example I'm going to build out today is a sales by salesperson query. You'll notice by default, it'll populate the API endpoint field, which is important. It is required that you have an endpoint name in order for this Query Builder list to publish. You may run into a scenario where you've potentially used this name before. So it would give you an error message in that event, and it'll require you to essentially give your query a unique API endpoint name. And then the last kind of piece here is we're going to assign it to a group. If you're not familiar with groups inside of Popdock, groups are essentially a way of being able to organize your lists within a connector. So the group for easy access that I'm going to put it in is my Query Builder group. Out in the wild, you might be using like a sales group if you're creating a sales-based list. So you can kind of select what group you assign this query to. And once you've hit add, it then opens up the interface. So to start joining together tables, we are going to go again to the Query Builder tab, and you can now see that this is kind of the framework of the visual interface that I had referenced before. The starting point with Query Builder is adding a table. And we're going to essentially construct our query by adding additional tables and then populating each of those tables with different fields from the table. There's a couple of different approaches as to how you can build this out. You can go table by table. Otherwise, if you do know all the joins that you're going to be using between the different tables, you can kind of build out the framework of all the tables you want and then add fields to each of those tables after the fact. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to start by adding my sales header here as the starting point. Once you've added a table, it gets added into this visual interface as a box. So any box that you see within this visual interface is going to be a table that you have represented in this query. But I'm going to build this out a couple of additional levels, and then I'm going to start adding in fields. So I'm going to join the sales person purchaser table here. And then you can see when we start joining tables together, there's kind of a new component to this add table interface where we are selecting the fields that we are joining them by. Now, you don't see that obviously in the first table that you add, just because that you haven't gotten to a point where you are joining in an additional table. But once you have that first table in, any following table that you begin adding, it will require you to select the field that you're joining the table by. So in this case, I'm going to be joining off the salesperson code and joining it to the code from the salesperson table. So you can start to see that we've got kind of the initial framework of this, but there are a couple of additional tables that I'm going to actually add in here. So the next one is, you'll notice when you do this, there's now a drop-down menu for the table you're joining to. So you'll want to make note of that if you are trying to join it back to either that second level table, or if you're trying to join it back to the initial on the sales header. By default, I believe it populates with whatever one that you had added last. So I'm going to switch this back to the sales header, and the table that I'm going to join next is the sales line. And the field is going to be off the number field from my sales header, which on the sales line is the document number. So we'll start with this. So you can kind of see I have the basic framework. I have the tables that I want involved in this query selected. The next step is then going through each of the tables and selecting what fields you want to populate from that query. Now, before I do that, I do want to highlight, if I click on the arrow between any of these joins, in this query editor panel, it gives you information about what two tables we're joining together. You can also see the fields that we are joining the tables by. If I wanted to go in and add additional joins, I do have the ability to do so. So you can see that I can add additional joins if needed. But I also wanted to highlight that you do have control over the join type. By default, it is always going to default to a left outer join. But if you wanted to change how these tables were being joined together, you have control of making that selection. And if you're not as familiar with the different types of joins and what their behavior is, if you click on this information icon, we have a tooltip that's built in here that gives you a little bit of information about what the behavior of each of these joins are. So just wanted to point this out as it's a helpful tool that you can come back and reference. And you'll notice that for any of the arrows. So basically, to populate this display, all you would do is you would click on the arrow for which join you wanted more information on, and then that's where you would see the two tables, again, the join type that's populated and the fields that are being joined together. So now I'm going to, again, go back to adding fields from each of these tables into my query. So to do that, you're actually going to click the name of the table, and then you are going to go back to the query editor, and you'll notice that there's a fields radio button where we have now the ability to select what fields we want to populate into this query. So from the sales header, I'm just going to grab a couple of fields here. We'll do the document type. And then I will also grab the salesperson code. And as you can see, I did the long way of finding these. You'll notice that there's a search bar at the top. So if you know a specific a field name that you want to look for, you can just type it in on the search. You can also show by field types. So this is kind of helpful too, which it essentially groups together all of the fields by the field type that field is. So if you know you're looking for a date field, or you might be looking for a specific string, this is another way, but you're not, I guess, sure what the name of that field is called. This is a way of being able to group together the different fields from this table based on its field type. So wanted to show that as an option as well. So I'm going to jump now over to my salesperson table and grab some fields here, and I will use the search in this case. And I'm going to refresh this. It looks like it moved into my, there we go. So you can see that those have been added in here. So I grab some fields from my salesperson here, or the salesperson purchaser table, and then lastly, I'm going to grab a couple fields from the sales line. And the quantity. Okay. So you can see that I've kind of constructed kind of a basic query here. Now I mentioned there is some additional optimizations that you can do, like making, if I wanted to summarize fields or if I wanted to put restrictions. So I'm going to quickly show how you would do that. So on the sales header, for instance, I'm going to use this document type field. And let's say I want to put a restriction so that I'm restricted the query down to a specific document type. If I click on the name of the field, you'll notice that I get details, or it opens up this field settings window, and the radio button next to the field settings is a restriction where I can now place a restriction on that field. So let's say I want to just bring in invoices. Now you'll notice whenever you place a restriction that there will be a filter icon next to the field. So it's just an identifier for you to know that you've placed a restriction on a specific field. The other thing that I'll point out is kind of the summary table functionality. So if I go to my sales line table here, you'll notice that we have this summary table button where we essentially can summarize or group together fields coming from this table. So in this specific scenario, I'm going to select that and I'm going to actually summarize each of these 3 fields. So now that I've selected summary table, I can then click on any of the fields and I can apply a summary method. So I am just going to sum all of these. Now, right here, I have a query that I may want to just publish as is. Now, I'd showed you at the start, in my example, I had joined together all the fields or all the tables initially and then added fields after the fact. But maybe as you've kind of gone through the process of building out this query, you decide that you want to potentially join in an additional table once you've already done that. So you have the ability to join in tables really at any point of your construction of this query. So I'm going to join in one more table here, and I'm going to join it to the sales line, and I am going to bring in the description from the item table. My join is the number. So you can see that we're now joining one additional level out. So you can see that you have a lot of control of being able to really build out as detailed of a query as you might need. But I'm going to click on the item here then, and I'm just going to bring in the description field. So at this point, I have a query that I want to work with, and I want to, I guess, publish into BC. Now, one thing I want to point out, as we were using this visual builder to generate your new query, you'll notice that there's a show code button at the very top here, where if I click on that, you can actually see the AL code for the extension that is about to be published into Business Central. So a user who's a little less technical, they don't need to be familiar with how to write this AL code or this AL query. They essentially can go in and build out their query using this visual builder. But for those of you that are more on the technical side and want to see the AL code that's being developed, you can click on the show code button. Once you've gone through the process of building this out, there's a couple of other sections that I just want to quickly highlight. The fields section, for instance, this gives you just a little bit more information on all of the fields that are populated in the query. So I can see I can select columns here to get additional information in more of a list style format. I can see what table each of these fields are coming from. I can see the field type. And if you have to adjust the field type, you can. So for instance, on the amount and the amount including tax, by default, those are coming in as a quantity field. So if I wanted to change that to a currency, I have the ability to do so. You can also then see any fields that you've placed a summary method on. You do have quite a bit of control of just getting more information about your query. The last thing that I'll quickly point out is the default field section. This is just kind of a helpful tip whenever you're building a list anywhere in Popdock, is to make sure that you populate it with default fields. That way, when someone goes and accesses this list, once it's been published, there are fields that populate in the list by default right when they open it up. If they don't select default fields, then by default, it's going to show essentially an empty query when you try to open it up inside of Popdock, and the user would then have to go in and select what fields they want to populate the query with. So I'm just going to select all here. And then once you've selected all, you have the ability to rearrange these fields in whatever order you want them to see them. If I wanted to move these around, I can. I'll do the description. There we go. And then have it in that order. So at this point, we have a pretty good query that we've built out. The next step is being able to then publish this query into our Business Central environment. And then upon doing so, it's then going to create a new list for us to use inside of Popdock. So to get to where we would want to publish this query, we're going to jump one step back into the breadcrumb and go back into the connector. And you would then go to the publish button. So inside of this publish button, inside of our Business Central Sandbox connector, it's going to show any resources that are available to be published into our Business Central Sandbox environment. So not only does it include any lists that you've built, but it also includes any widgets that you might be publishing to your BC environment. Every single time that you go and publish, you have to go through the process of selecting what resources you want to be included in the extension that's going to be published into BC. So one thing that I want to point out and kind of make clear is if you already have an extension that's been published into Business Central, and let's say after the fact you go in and you maybe build out a new query or you maybe build out a new widget that you want published. When you do go and publish here, you do need to still select whatever lists or widgets that you have currently published if you want those to remain. Otherwise, what will happen is if I were to go in here and just select my new query, all that's going to be included in the extension that's going to be published into Business Central is whatever I've selected in here. So it's just a good habit, and just so to make sure you guys are aware when you're out in the wild doing this, is be sure to select whatever lists that you may currently have in your Business Central environment, in addition to any new ones that you want to publish whenever you go through this process. So I'm just going to select all of the lists that I have in here, and I'm going to hit the publish button. So the process will kick off. It'll essentially be publishing this as an extension into our Business Central sandbox. Once it's available, or once it's been published, you have the ability to not only access that through the Business Central API, but it also will give us a new list for us to use inside of the Popdock web application here. So as you can see, once the process kind of goes through, at the very end, you'll either get a success message, as you see here, letting you know that your extension was successfully published, or it would give you an error message letting you know of any issues that took place while trying to publish the extension. But at this point, now that my query has been published, or I guess those lists have been published, it's now available as a list for me to use inside of Popdock. So if I navigate back into our web application into the home page, I can go into my Business Central Sandbox connector. I can locate the group that I assigned it to, and I can select that list and add it in. So you can see that I've created a kind of a sales by salesperson list. Now I am relying on demo data. So you'll notice that some of these invoices aren't populated with data. So always the risk that you play inside of a demo setting. But out in the wild, you would likely have these fields kind of populated inside of Business Central. And you would be able to generate essentially a new list of data containing data from whatever fields that you've selected from any of the tables represented inside of your Business Central query. Now I'm going to jump back into the query builder, as I just want to highlight a couple of the other examples that I had pre-built and just kind of show you them. So we're going back into, oh, I'm in my production connector, sorry. Let me find my sandbox. I wanted to open up the this one, the sales lines and sales header. And the reason I wanted to highlight this one is this is a very common one that we see come into our support channel. People want to have a join between fields from their sales line and their sales header table. You'll notice that we have the sales line as the first one, as we want to essentially capture every single line, where we want every single line to be represented from the sales line table in the query. So I just wanted to highlight this one, as this is a pretty simple, as you can see, it just contains one join, but this is a very common one that we see people come in from the support side, where they want assistance with help building this out. You'll notice that it's a very basic join between the two tables. In terms of optimizations, we just have a filter on the type field, and have a restriction so that it's pulling in item and resource from the type from those sales lines. So this is a really common one that we see. I'm going to jump back in here, and also I wanted to highlight this GL entries one. So this is even more simple. We only have one table represented inside of this query, but the reason I wanted to point it out is we talked about selecting the summary table and summarizing fields within the query. So in this case, we've applied a sum summary method to each of these, the amount, credit amount, and debit amount fields, but we then apply summary methods to these three: description, document number, and GL account number. And that's because whenever you create a summary table, if you want to click on, just clicking on this help or tooltip here, essentially allows you to group and summarize tables or fields from whatever table that you've selected. So if you do not apply a summary method to these different fields, it's actually going to group these fields together, which you'll see here in a second when I open up the list. So I just wanted to highlight this one as well, because it is another way of being able to apply that summary table, is that it's now grouping together the other fields that I haven't applied a summary method to. And then jumping back one more is the sales lines with serial numbers. And the reason that I wanted to highlight this one is that we have another kind of unique scenario where we've actually joined, or inside of the query that we've populated, we've actually pulled in two fields that have the name quantity, but coming from two different tables. So whenever you do that, there is an alias field that's tied to that field name. And the reason that I want to make you aware of this alias is because when you publish these queries, we can only have one field, or each field has to have its own unique name. So we use this alias to essentially allow you to pull in additional fields that might have the same name from different tables. So the alias, and you have control of being able to say what you want the field to be called, or what alias you want to use. In my scenario, I've essentially just given the table name with the field as the alias. If I click on this one, you'll notice the exact same thing. Now you might be wondering, how does it say line quantity and SN quantity when I've given an alias that doesn't show either of those? And that's because when we go to the field section, I have the ability to control how I want these fields to be displayed. So you'll notice under the name field, this gives you the ability to essentially adjust the names of any of the fields that might be coming from the table so that they are displaying however you would want your end users to see them. So I just had gone in here and I had added, this is the line quantity and this is the serial number quantity, just so I could identify that as well. So just wanted to highlight that piece, is not only can you control the field type, like I had mentioned in the first example, but if you do want to rename the fields in terms of how they are displayed to an end user, you can do that as well. So I'm going to jump out and I'll just show you that GL entries one to show you the grouping. So again, what it did, it grouped the values from these fields together, and then it summarized the essentially currency fields that I had displayed for that table. So wanted to kind of showcase that. So I'm going to jump outside of Popdock, as I also wanted to quickly highlight what this is doing inside of Business Central. So as I had mentioned, not only when you publish to these queries does it create a list for you inside of Popdock, but it also it essentially publishes an extension into Business Central, and any of the lists that you have available can be available as a web service inside of BC. So I'm going to click on Web Services here, or I'm going to search for web services, and I'm going to add a new one. So the object type for these is a query. If I go into the object ID and expand this out, you'll notice that those 4 queries that I had published within my extension are now available as a query object type that we can publish and make available right inside of Business Central. In case you, I didn't highlight this when I had showed the code for that original one, but if you go and show code inside of our query builder, it'll tell you the object ID for that query as well. So a quicker way, if you had that interface up, is you'd be able to search for this query object ID as opposed to going and trying to find it within the list. I just know that the query objects get posted with a 7.7 is usually the starting point for any of the queries that you publish into your Business Central environment. So just wanted to show that they are available as well through the Business Central API, in addition to creating a new list for you to use inside of Popdock. Now, the last thing that I wanted to quickly discuss is I had mentioned at the start that we're doing all of this inside of our Business Central sandbox connector. So the query builder itself and the initial publish of the query is all being handled inside of our sandbox connector for Business Central. Once we've gone through the process of publishing the queries and or any widgets to our Business Central sandbox, we then have a direct a kind of promotion that we can do to publish that extension or promote that extension to our production environment. So once we've gone through the process of publishing into the sandbox, if I then go and find my Business Central production connector, you'll notice that there is also a publish button inside of here. And essentially what we're doing is we are selecting the sandbox environment that's tied to that tenant or that Business Central tenant. I can then select it from this drop-down menu, hit publish, and what it's going to do is it's going to take that customization extension that we've published to our sandbox environment. It's going to grab it and then promote it to our production setting. So it's kind of one additional step to get it to the production setting, but just wanted to highlight the different behaviors so that you are aware of how you are able to then get those newly created queries that you've built to your Business Central production environment. So that is kind of a run through of the query builder and a lot of the big rocks that I wanted to discuss today. Again, the big thing that I'll point out is when we talk about query builder, you get access to really every single table within your Business Central environment. So to reiterate, any standard tables, any custom extensions, any ISV products that you're using would all be available for you to use inside of the query builder. And then in addition to that, there are some optimizations that you can build into the query builder, like placing restrictions or creating a summary table that allow you to really generate an optimized query of your data. So I'm going to shuffle back to the slideshow here and just open it up and see if anybody has any questions. If you did have any questions on anything that we've covered here today, feel free to put those in the chat or the questions panel. I'm happy to get those answered. So I'll give it a second here and see if anything comes through. It looks like we had one just asking again about what tables are available. So I'll repeat that one more time. Every single table within your Business Central environment would be available to be able to access through the Query Builder. So standard tables, custom extensions, ISV products, they're all available through there. The next question that I see here is with regards to the publishing, and is it available through the API? Yeah, so basically, once we've published that extension into Business Central, you're able to then access it through or expose it through the web services inside of Business Central. They are available as queries that can be published, which you then can use and can access through accessing the Business Central API. So if you wanted to export them that way, you do have control of doing those. Will all the standard tables show automatically in the selection list? Yes. So there's nothing that you need to do to essentially add in additional tables. Really, any table that's exposed within your Business Central environment will be available in that table dropdown. So standard tables, ISV products, custom extensions, things of that nature, they'd all be available. What level licenses have access to Query Builder? So our Business Central business level, I'm trying to caught on my the word choice there. The business tier, a Query Builder is available at the business level and then also up in the premium level as well. If I go into my BC Sandbox and open up Query Builder, there are not any tables on the table dropdown. So in that case, there might be something wrong with the connection settings with your Business Central connector. My guess is that there might be an error with the publish company portion of the connector. So I would double check that you have the publish company. One thing to point out with Business Central, it is very specific in that you do need to have the proper spelling and punctuation for that company. So if there's any error in that, it can impact whether or not the tables are populating. So that would be the first place I would check. If you're still not seeing it after that, I would reach out to our support team. You can contact support at e1solutions.com and they'd be able to assist you with that. One question about when widget and new variables are going to be fixed. That off the top of my head, I'm not sure about. That's something I would reach out to either your account manager or contact the support team, and they might be able to provide some more details on that. Can you introduce variable fields, options, calculated fields, and restrictions options? Key fields that we see. The answer to that is yes. I just kind of scratched the surface on some of the functionality built into the Query Builder, but you can introduce variable fields. When it comes to calculated fields, this is actually a good thing to point out. Once you've promoted your extension to your production environment, it becomes like a full list inside of your production connector. And at that point, that's where you'll be able to go in and add additional calculated fields. So the answer to all that is yes, you can do all of those things. Is there a way to find out when a Query Builder query was created and who created it? I don't know if that is built into the list. I don't believe it is off the top of my head, but that is something and potentially some good feedback that we can look into, seeing if that's something that can be included or made available. So with that, I will let you guys have some time back into your day. I appreciate that you stuck out, and hopefully you got a chance to see the power of Query Builder and what it can do for allowing you to generate new AL queries of your Business Central data. If you have any questions going forward, reach out to our sales team, sales@e1solutions.com, or again, our support team at support@e1solutions.com. Thanks for your time today.